Welcome back to the channel, guys. In this video, we're back on the Mercedes and we're going to tackle probably one of the most crucial parts of restoring this car. All these oil leaks. To start off with, we're going to use some of this motor flush. We're going to go drive this thing around so it can loosen up as much gunk as possible, because in addition to the valve cover and the valve cover gasket, we're also going to change out the oil pan gasket. We're gonna let this thing warm up, and then we're gonna actually take it around and drive it a little bit, so that way that oil not only gets warm, but hopefully with the oil pressure kind of helps kind of clean some stuff off, hopefully at least. And then what we'll start out with is pulling that valve cover off so that we actually have time to paint it. My youngest human is gonna join us for our little warm up. Use your fingers like this. Put your fingers like this and pull it like that. Pull hard, hard, hard. There you go.
Oh, wow.
You can put it in. Full service. Boom. Just like that.
How can it play so high? I know.
We're gonna let this thing cool off for just a couple of minutes. You know, it got warm out there.
That is very satisfying, though.
It is. These pliers help a lot, but the biggest thing that helps was that when I first installed these, I put all of that dielectric grease on them, and that prevents them from corroding onto the spark plug. Makes it nice and easy to whip them off. Just like that. It's still hot, but this is shockingly clean. And I really mean that. It is shockingly clean. It doesn't look like there's any burnt oil. I don't know. I doubt that anybody's been in here to clean it up. I guess the previous owners stayed up with oil changes, because that's beautiful, honestly. I don't even know how many miles this thing's got, and this thing is clean, shockingly clean. This, on the other hand, doesn't seem as clean as the valve cover is. Potentially somebody replaced that gasket and maybe cleaned up the inside. There's no gunk or grime or anything like that. It just looks like years of burnt oil pretty much on it. I'm not too sure if the EGR is just not working and it allowed all of the oil to just kind of gas on top of this, or lack of oil changes. Not sure. The center, whatever this thing is clean. Obviously the oil that I put in here is clean, and I haven't driven very many miles, so I'm not sure, but it looks like it can kind of clean up decently. So maybe it's not too bad, maybe just age.
It's already clean.
This thing's not super crusty, but it's also not super fresh either. Luckily they're cheap enough that, you know, why not? But what will go around, because the biggest thing is just how ugly this thing is. I'm not sure if it's aluminum or magnesium, but we're gonna give it a nice clean, nice coat of paint, put it back in there with a new gasket, and call it good. After I brushed it with the brass brush, I hit it with sandpaper about 600 and then 800. Realistically, without a really good sandblast, this thing's gonna get oxidized again. Also, the casting is really rough, so paint is gonna make it look better, but it's not like some sort of showpiece. Realistically, we just don't want exposed aluminum or magnesium, whatever this is, to then corrode everything else, including like the battery and stuff, because that's how it happens. The color is a little bit different, obviously, but I think that looks honestly very, very good. It looks pretty fantastic. Obviously, like I said, the casting is not perfect, so you are going to see what looks like blemishes, but literally those are just casting marks. A couple of coats of this and probably some clear, and we'll get it installed. But while it's drying, we're going to work on draining that oil and unbolting that oil pan. Because we wrote the date on it, we know that we actually changed the oil exactly 6 months ago. This thing is rough, and it's got a million bolts. I'm gonna work on this and then pull it out. We're gonna have to loosen the engine mounts and actually jack up the engine so that we can fit that back part of the oil pan that's connected to the transmission. It's gonna be fun. I got all the bolts out, but before I pull the pan out, it's still kind of stuck up there because instead of using a gasket, they used the RTV gasket maker stuff. I'm gonna go in and just clean everything that I can touch with brake clean and a towel, just because once I have the new pan up there, I don't want to have to clean around the new pan and continue to work around a new clean pan. And at the same time, once it's all open, I don't want gunk and everything that might be able to get inside of there So I'm gonna go in and clean everything out first. Jumping at this the next day, I finally actually got the pan out. I had to call it quits last night because it started raining hard on me. This thing was a pain. Let me show you why. So under here, just about everything seems like it's in the way. You have the steering linkage right there because this car still used a steering box versus a rack. You got the cross member that goes right here. That's not removable. And then you have the pickup tube that's right in the front here. And all of this, I had to jack it up on 2x4s, pretty much as high as it would go. And then had to kind of wiggle it out of here. And I finally got it. The camera makes it seem kind of normal, but this is long. This is like probably over 2 feet. There's my hand. Look at that. About 3.5 worth of my hand right there. That's massive. I did notice this last night, not even just now, but it looks like they did crush it at one point and welded it back up. Since I've cleaned it and the oil sat in it, it hasn't leaked. So I guess they did that decently. Now we're just gonna clean it up, clean out all of this old gasket maker, and clean up underneath, and then bolt this thing back on. This thing's all nice and cleaned up. Now we're gonna install that gasket. And a trick that my buddy Joseph told me about was to use some of this aviation sealant on both sides of that gasket, let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then install it. So while it's going to be drying, we're going to go under there and just prep it and then throw this thing back in. This is with the gasket and sealant on. Now we can go ahead and reinstall the pan. With the other side all done, now we can install this guy. I've left it, given it plenty of time to cure. So we'll install this gasket and place it on here. We did get all new stainless hardware for the valve covers. You guys can let me know if you would. I think it's going to look fantastic on here, and from what I read, they should work out perfectly fine. Possibly some dissimilar metal corrosion, but seems like it's not a big deal. While I'm over here, actually, these hose clamps caught my attention because I did order all brand new black ones. Now, some of you guys might argue that the Mercedes brand ones are going to be the best and all of this to keep on. One, they look very ugly, but two, these are Mishimoto ones, so they're very good regardless. Project Farm did a comparison on all of them, and Mishimoto came out pretty strong, and they just look super sick. I also try to hide them as often as I can. It just looks better all streamlined like that. It does get pretty hot under the hood, so what I did get is some of these heat sleeve type socks things. At the very least, where it comes into contact with the plug, it'll hopefully help to keep it at least a little cooler. It is sitting right above the headers, and that's directly kind of where this is going to block, so hopefully that'll help. Eventually I will be changing out these headers, doing a restoration on them, but that's when I do the rest of the exhaust. I don't want to really waste time with the catalytic converters and all that. I'm gonna do it all at once. So this car is supposed to come with all of this undercladding. On ours, for whatever reason, the previous owner tore it all out. Luckily, the diesel has it all. So we pulled it out. Now what we got to do is just clean off all of this soot and oil, being that it had an exhaust leak. It just blew gross, sooty oil all over them. So we're going to degrease them, clean them up, and install them. These came out great. Off camera, I actually let them soak in diesel because it was so grimy. I had to scrape all of the gunk off the way that you guys saw. And then afterwards, I hit it with just the regular degreaser just to kind of get the surface stuff off. And it came out amazing. A lot of guys will simply just remove these, but in a lot of cars, including even performance cars, these are accredited for a lot of the fuel economy and the aerodynamics of whatever the car that they're on. It's honestly kind of surprising that this car has so many, considering it was kind of the more budget kind of oriented model for its time. Even on the Lexus, we have maybe the fronts and the backs, just a mud guard. This has it going all the way down the transmission tunnel, so it's pretty sophisticated as far as like aerodynamics and, you know, plastic covers. My favorite part about this kind of stuff is that it keeps away all of the mud and grime from all the running gear and the engine and stuff. When you're in there having to do even something as simple as an oil change, it sucks to have to crawl over a bunch of grime and dust. So this helps kind of keep all of that away. So you pop the hood and it's nice and clean.